Welcome to the realm of science fiction. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. Enjoy listening. Jack Rowan stepped out of his luxurious mansion, the crisp morning air brushing against his face. As he made his way down the driveway, something caught his eye, an extra letter in his mailbox. Curiosity piqued, he approached the box and retrieved the letter. The envelope was plain, but something about it felt off. He tore it open, and as his eyes scanned the contents, a chill ran down his spine. It was an invitation, a ritual to be precise, a ritual attended only by alien women and watched by the wealthy. Jack, a man who thrived on mystery and the thrill of the unknown, felt a strange excitement stir within him. The monotony of his wealth had left him craving something more, something darker. This invitation seemed to be the answer. He folded the letter tightly and slipped it into his coat pocket, taking a deep breath. A part of him wondered if it was a prank, but deep down, he felt a pull, a whisper that this was real. He couldn't shake the thought of it, even as he arrived at his corporate office and tried to immerse himself in the day's work. Meetings, phone calls, and decisions filled his morning, but his mind kept drifting back to the letter. Should I go? The question echoed in his head, refusing to be silenced. By lunchtime, Jack stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office, staring out at the city below. His fingers tapped lightly against the glass as he weighed his options. The allure of adventure was too strong to resist. By evening, he had made up his mind. He would go. The night was dark, the kind of darkness that seemed to swallow the world whole. Jack sat in the back of a sleek black car, the invitation clutched in his hand. The address led him to an exclusive club on the outskirts of the city. From the outside, it was unremarkable, a nondescript building with no signs or markings, but as Jack stepped inside, he was transported into another world. The interior was bathed in dim, violet light, creating an otherworldly atmosphere. The walls were adorned with intricate designs that seemed to shift and move when he wasn't looking. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and a deep resonant bass filled the room, accompanied by an almost imperceptible hum, a chorus of whispers that sent shivers down his spine. In the center of the room were square boxes, each containing a person with only their head exposed. Most of them were men, and they seemed to be part of some kind of competition. Surrounding them were women, beautiful, ethereal women who looked almost alien. Their skin glowed faintly, and their eyes were deep pools of mystery. Jack felt a strange unease as their gazes fell upon him. A hostess approached him, her smile polite but unsettling. "They've been expecting you, Mr. Rowan," she said softly. Jack's heart raced. Who had been expecting him? Before he could ask, two women began to approach him. One had hair as dark as the night, while the other's platinum blonde locks shimmered like silver. Their eyes locked onto his, and Jack felt a wave of discomfort wash over him. This was bigger than he had anticipated. The dark-haired woman reached out and adjusted the collar of his coat, her fingers brushing against his neck. "Trust me," she whispered, "you've never experienced anything like this." The blonde placed a hand on his chest, gently guiding him toward one of the boxes. "You won't disappoint us, will you?" she murmured, her voice a seductive melody. Jack's rational mind screamed at him to leave, but his body refused to obey. He took a step forward, then another. The crowd watched in silence as he climbed into the box. At first, he felt nothing. The air inside was warm and heavy, almost comforting. He closed his eyes, and as he did, he felt the tension in his body melt away. The music seemed to vibrate through him, syncing with his heartbeat. "Let go." The words whispered in his mind, and he obeyed. For the first time in his life, Jack felt truly free. The weight of his wealth, his power, his image, it all disappeared. He was a child again, safe and at peace. But then, something shifted. The warmth turned to pressure, the comfort to suffocation. Jack's eyes snapped open as the lid of the box lifted. He stumbled out, gasping for air. The women's eyes were no longer filled with allure, but with something colder, more calculating. The blonde smirked, her voice dripping with disdain. I think we overestimated him." The dark-haired woman crossed her arms, her tone icy. Is he even worth keeping? Jack frowned, his voice steady but laced with unease. What are you talking about? They didn't answer. Instead, the other guests began to laugh, their whispers filling the room. An order was barked, "Bring the drinks." Jack hesitated, but another command followed. You heard me. When you're told to do something, you do it. The laughter grew louder, and Jack realized with a sinking feeling that he was no longer a guest. He was a servant, a slave. The women who had once looked at him with desire now regarded him with contempt. He was ordered to fetch drinks, remove shoes, and pick up dropped napkins. Each command chipped away at his pride, but he obeyed, too afraid to resist. As the night wore on, Jack's humiliation grew. He thought of his wealth, his power, his name. None of it mattered here. He was nothing more than a toy, a pawn in their game. The next morning, Jack awoke on the floor of the women's home, his body aching and his mind in turmoil. The events of the previous night played over and over in his head. The orders, the laughter, the humiliation, it all fueled a growing rage within him. He clenched his fists, his jaw tightening as he rose to his feet. The women were still asleep on the couch, their faces serene. Jack stared at them, his anger boiling over. He was no pawn. He was Jack Rowan. "Are you curious about me, huh?" he shouted, his voice echoing through the room. The women jolted awake, their eyes widening in surprise. Jack's transformation was startling. The man who had obediently served them the night before now stood before them, his eyes blazing with defiance. "Close your mouths and come with me," he commanded. The women exchanged glances, intrigued by his sudden shift in demeanor. They followed him outside, where a limousine awaited. Jack held the door open for them, his expression unreadable. As the car sped toward his mansion, Jack laid out his terms. "The roles have changed," he said, his voice firm. "You will be my servants. You will leave that place. And as for money, name your price." The blonde chuckled, a soft, melodic sound that seemed to dance in the air, while the dark-haired woman's eyes gleamed with a mixture of curiosity and amusement. "Interesting," she said, her voice low and measured, as if she were savoring the word. Jack's jaw tightened, his gaze unwavering as he waited for their response. The tension in the limousine was palpable, a silent battle of wills between the three of them. The dark-haired woman leaned back in her seat, her piercing eyes never leaving Jack's. "You think you can command us?" she asked, her tone laced with a challenge. "You think you can simply flip the script and make us your servants?" Jack's expression didn't falter. "I don't think," he said firmly. "I know. You played your game last night. Now it's my turn." The blonde tilted her head, her platinum hair catching the dim light of the car's interior. "And what makes you think we'll agree to this arrangement?" she asked, her voice teasing. Jack leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his eyes locked onto hers. "Because you're curious," he said. "Because you've spent your lives manipulating people, pulling the strings, and now you're wondering what it would be like to have someone challenge you, to have someone take control." The women exchanged a glance, a silent communication passing between them. The dark-haired woman's lips curled into a faint smile. "You're bold, Jack Rowan," she said. "I'll give you that." "Bold enough to make you an offer you can't refuse," Jack replied, his voice steady. "You'll have everything you want, luxury, power, wealth. But on my terms." The blonde laughed again, but this time there was a hint of admiration in her tone. "You're not like the others," she said. "Most men crumble under our gaze. But you're different." "I'm not most men," Jack said simply. The dark-haired woman studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Very well," she said. "We'll play your game. For now." Jack leaned back, a satisfied smile tugging at the corners of his lips. "Good." The limousine pulled up to Jack's mansion, its grandeur a stark contrast to the cold, otherworldly atmosphere of the club. The women stepped out, their movements graceful and deliberate, as if they were already sizing up their new surroundings. Jack led them inside, his demeanor calm and confident, though his mind was racing. He knew he was playing a dangerous game, but he also knew that he had the upper hand for now. The first few days were a test of wills. The women, true to their nature, pushed boundaries and challenged Jack at every turn. They demanded the finest things, designer clothes, exotic foods, rare wines, and Jack obliged, but only to a point. He made it clear that while they would be treated with respect, they were not in charge. The dark-haired woman, who introduced herself as Celine, was the more calculating of the two. She watched Jack closely, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The blonde, who called herself Lyra, was more playful, her laughter often filling the halls of the mansion. But beneath their polished exteriors, Jack could sense a simmering tension, a hunger for control that mirrored his own. One evening, as they sat in the mansion's opulent dining room, Celine leaned back in her chair, her gaze fixed on Jack. "You're an enigma," she said. "Most men would have crumbled by now. But you thrive under pressure." Jack raised an eyebrow, a faint smile playing on his lips. "Is that a compliment?" "An observation," Celine replied, "but don't mistake it for admiration. We're not easily impressed." "I wouldn't expect you to be," Jack said, "but I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to show you that there's more to this world than your little games." Lyra chuckled, twirling a strand of her platinum hair around her finger. "And what do you propose we do instead, Jack? Live happily ever after in your mansion?" "No," Jack said, his tone firm. "I propose we rewrite the rules. Together." The women exchanged a glance, their curiosity piqued. "Go on," Celine said. Jack leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with determination. "You have power, real power, but you've been using it to manipulate and control. What if you used it to create something greater? Something that could change the world?" Lyra's laughter faded, replaced by a look of genuine interest. "You're serious," she said. "Deadly serious," Jack replied. "You've spent your lives playing games with people's lives. But what if you used your influence to help them instead, to build something that lasts?" Celine's lips curved into a faint smile. "You're ambitious, Jack. I'll give you that. But ambition alone isn't enough." "I know," Jack said. "That's why I need you. Both of you." The room fell silent, the weight of his words hanging in the air. For the first time, Jack saw a flicker of uncertainty in the women's eyes. They were used to being in control, to calling the shots. But Jack's vision, his audacity, was something they hadn't anticipated. Weeks turned into months, and the dynamic between Jack and the women began to shift. What started as a battle of wills gradually evolved into a partnership, albeit a tense one. Celine and Lyra, though still wary, found themselves drawn to Jack's vision. They began to use their influence not to manipulate, but to create, building a network of power that spanned industries and continents. But old habits die hard. There were moments when the women's darker instincts surfaced, when they tested Jack's resolve. And there were moments when Jack's own ambition threatened to consume him. But through it all, they remained bound together by a shared goal, a desire to reshape the world on their own terms. One night, as they stood on the balcony of the mansion, overlooking the city below, Celine turned to Jack. "You've changed us," she said, her voice softer than usual. "I didn't think that was possible." Jack smiled, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "And you've changed me," he said, "but the game's not over yet." Lyra stepped forward, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "What's next, Jack?" she asked. "Where do we go from here?" Jack turned to face them, his expression serious. "We keep going," he said. "We keep pushing. Because the moment we stop, the moment we let our guard down, we lose." The women nodded, their faces reflecting a newfound determination. They had come a long way from the cold, calculating figures Jack had first encountered, but they were still dangerous, still unpredictable. And Jack knew that he could never fully let his guard down. As the months turned into years, Jack's vision began to take shape. The world began to change, shaped by the invisible hand of their alliance. But Jack never forgot the lessons he had learned, the price of power, the cost of ambition, and the delicate balance of control. And as he stood in the mansion surrounded by the trappings of his success, he knew that the game was far from over. The roles had changed, the balance of power had shifted, but the stakes remained the same. In this new world, Jack Rowan was the one holding the strings. and he intended to keep it that way.